Hey guys, Josh Buckner here, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can take better indoor sports photography pictures, so stick around. Let's talk about the things you're going to need for indoor sports photography. The first thing is a DSLR or mirrorless camera. A point and shoot camera is not going to work in this situation. And the second thing is a fast aperture lens, meaning 2.8 on the aperture. If you have a kit lens, that might work. You're just going to have to adjust your ISO to get the proper exposure, but again, DSLR or mirrorless camera with a fast lens. Now let's talk about our camera settings. First things first, we're going to be shooting in manual mode, so you want to turn that dial to the M. The second thing, and this is not a necessity, but however it does make things easier, if you can set your camera to back button focus, I highly recommend it. Just do a Google or YouTube search for your camera body. Just put, let's say, Canon 80D back button focus, and you'll find a bazillion tutorials on how to set that up. Again, highly recommended. Now the question is, do you shoot in JPEG or RAW? If it's me, my choice, I'm going to shoot in RAW. You can shoot in JPEG. Again, if you are comfortable with using RAW files, then please do so, because it's going to allow you more latitude in post-production when you're trying to bring the exposure back up, because the main thing in this whole tutorial is that we're going to be shooting photos a little on the underexposed side, and by shooting in RAW it's going to allow you to bring those up in post-production. The next thing you're going to want to set is you want your camera to be set for single point autofocus, and what I mean by that is you're going to manually choose which focus point in your viewfinder that your camera is going to use to focus. And typically when you frame the player in your viewfinder, you want to have the autofocus that's going to be focusing on the face, so that each shot you get, the face is going to be in focus. The next thing is your drive mode, and what I mean by that is when you press the shutter button, what happens to the shutter. And we want that set so that when you hold the shutter button down, it's going to continuously take pictures until you release the shutter button. And that's usually called continuous or high-speed continuous drive mode. And then the next thing is, and this is critical, and you have to set your autofocus mode to AI servo, and I do shoot Canon, so AI servo is what it's called. Basically what this is doing is allowing your camera to continuously focus while you're moving around, and then also while your subject is moving. It's going to allow you to keep things in focus. Now let's talk about our exposure settings. Remember, we're in manual mode, so we're going to have to manually enter the exposure settings we want. So first things first, let's go with the aperture. If you have a fast aperture lens, meaning a 2.8, go ahead and set your aperture for 2.8. If you're using a kit lens and your aperture opens up to probably 3.5 on the wide end, then set it for that. But again, the lowest setting that your lens will allow is what you want to set your aperture for. And then shutter speed. This is very important because typically in sports photography you're trying to stop motion. In order to do that, you have to have a fast shutter speed. And these are the shutter speeds that I use in most cases. 1/500th of a second, and this is going to be if you have some really crappy, horrible lighting. This is going to probably the slowest you want to go. The fastest is going to be 1/1000th of a second. This means you have some pretty decent light. And then typically what I find myself using is 1/640th of a second or 1/800th of a second. Again, those are the two I use the most. The lighting in the gyms that I shoot in typically allow for those shutter speeds. That's fast enough for me to still allow some light in through the lens and then stop motion. And then the last thing you're going to set is your ISO or your ISO, however you guys choose to call it. But basically once the aperture is set and your shutter speed, you're going to adjust your ISO so that your exposure meter is reading no more than 2 stops below a perfectly exposed image. So -1, no more than -2, but if you can get it into that range, in post you can bring that exposure back up, and this is going to allow you to have the best exposure with minimal amount of noise in your image. Let's talk about the 2 don'ts of indoor sports photography. The first don't is don't use a flash. You don't need it. It's going to just annoy people, and it's probably going to make a scene. I'll give you a quick story. Was at a basketball game not too long ago, and there was a lady in the stands using a flash camera, and the ref whistled the game to a stop, walked over to the stands and asked her nicely not to use flash photography. And yeah, just don't do it. It's not worth the second don't of indoor sports photography is don't use auto white balance. Set your white balance for the lighting that you're shooting in. This is for two reasons. Number one, it's going to be easier to edit your images in post-processing, and number two, it's going to give your images a continuity between them. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have 30 pictures you want to post as an album on Facebook. Well, all those pictures are going to look the same or look like they were lit under the same conditions. If you use auto white balance, it's going to have a tendency to shift the color of white between images. It won't be a lot, but it'll be enough to where you could tell a difference. So again, adjust your white balance to the lighting conditions that you're shooting in, and then just set it and be done with it. The last thing I want to talk about are a couple of tips that are going to help you get better pictures when you get to the gym that you're shooting in. The first thing is arrive early, and the second thing is don't shoot pictures from the bleachers or the stands. So let's talk about the first one, arrive early. Get to the game early enough that's going to allow you to dial in your white balance, dial in your camera settings, and take a few test shots to make sure everything is set and ready to go so that when the game starts, you're ready to start taking pictures. The second thing is, I see people do this all the time, is don't sit in the stands or stand in the stands or the bleachers and take pictures from up there. That's what people are used to seeing because they go to a game and they're sitting there watching the game. Walk down to the court, get as close as you can. I have yet to tell a ref or someone running the tournament to tell me that I can't go onto the court. And so my advice is go on the court, get down there close to where the action is. You're going to get better pictures. If someone tells you to get off the court or to leave, then go ahead and leave. But go down there and shoot and get the best pictures that you can. I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit that like button. If you want to see more how-to or tutorial style videos, please leave a comment below. And please be sure to hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you along. And until the next video, peace.